Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. And today I have the amazing Satch with us. Hi, Satch, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really well. Thanks for asking. And thank you for taking the time out to come and share your views and your story today with the listeners and viewers on the podcast. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay, yeah. My name's Joshua Satchell, but the people call me Satch.
Yeah.
I am a songwriter, so I write for myself and have my own artist project, and I write for and with other artists as well because I am a songwriting nerd and just love songwriting. I'm from a small town just outside of Brighton on the south coast, and now I live in London.
Lovely. So you're also an artist as well, right? So how do you can kind of combine your songwriting, your artistry, and how did you get to where you are today?
Oh wow, that's a big question. Well, I think um I think songwriting is the most important thing for me. Like that's what I identify as the most. I rarely refer to myself as a musician or anything of the sort. That's the thing that sort of turned me on to this career path, I guess. Like hearing other people express themselves in song and relating to that,
Yeah.
and then wanting to offer that to other people. And I think I say this all the time, I think that's like sonically reaching out and holding someone else's hand for 3.5 minutes, which is this amazing connection that only songwriting creates when when we're vulnerable and we articulate someone else's pain in a way they couldn't do themselves.
Mm.
That's just magic to me. So
Love that.
yeah, that's what I try and do with my music, and then I guess I've tried to share that a little bit, playing it live with my bands, um, and yeah, releasing records as well.
And if you don't mind me asking, because we're from the trans community, do you think identity has a massive part to play in the music that you produce and the stories you've been through?
Yeah, of course. That's you know the answer to that question for sure. Of course it does, and it should, like our songs and our music, everything that we do should reflect us, I think. There's this concept in songwriting called prosody where we make all the components of the song match the core of what we're talking about. And I think in our artistry, our identity is that core, and then everything we do, whether that's our live show or our records or our branding, like anything
Yeah.
that needs to reflect that core as well to make it cohesive and make everything align. You and me know how it feels when things don't align, and
Yeah.
that's an unlivable life. So yeah, this is how we can right some wrongs through music, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah, and inspire others as well and empower community because I think we're so lacking in the music and entertainment industry. Our community is so invisible and we are here, we're trying, and I think we just need that platform and we need more people to see us and to hear us and yeah, to get where we're coming from.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely have first-hand experience of that. There are some awesome trans artists that are breaking through that, um, but still not that many people wouldn't know about. But I think we definitely face more barriers along the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like I for example, there are I will get booked for way more pride festivals than I will for music festivals. And um, that's just one example. Or if I'm being interviewed by a journalist, I will have multiple questions about me being trans and quite inappropriate questions
Oh, sorry to hear that.
rather than my music. So it's like, they're just two examples of kind of barriers, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've also had a musical education. So how has that affected your musical education as well? Because I know you've been to ICMP. So tell us more
Well,
about
yeah, I got kicked out of high school, and yeah, I feel like I was a smart kid, but I was really not in a good place. When you hit puberty, that's when that's when things
that.
start to get really
Tricky.
chaotic in for a trans person, right? And that just coincided with my kind of secondary school education, I guess. So I got kicked out of high school and went down a pretty dark path for a while. And then when I found songwriting, and that was just what made helped me make sense of the world. I thought, how can I um go and do this? Like, and I actually heard about a uni called BIM.
Yeah. Okay.
So and that was up the road from me in Brighton. So I sort of ran away to Brighton to study songwriting. Um, and it just, yeah, it coincided with me becoming myself and coming out and making huge lifestyle changes and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, then I graduated from my BA in songwriting,
Yeah.
and had been sort of playing festivals and pursuing music along the way. And then after I graduated, I was playing in Germany and I signed my publishing deal. And then I knew I wanted to write an autobiographical album about my transition.
Love
And
that.
doing a master's was a way to do that, to give myself kind of structure and deadlines rather than rehearsing and performing and gigging all the time. So yeah, I took on a part-time songwriting masters at ICMP. Yeah.
Well, well done. And what kind of challenges and barriers have obviously you faced coming through this industry and being where you are right now?
Um, yeah, all kinds. I think I mentioned a couple earlier, but maybe they happen late when you sort of start to get more established. But I think earlier on, um, yeah, early on in your transition, you're contending with so much other stuff, even down to having more appointments, and hormonal changes. I had things like I was running around playing festivals
Okay.
and desperately unhappy, and I was playing on stages wearing a binder in like 30-degree heat and running around on a stage, and knowing and then having not wanting to hear my voice back. I have people coming up to me all the time saying, your voice, your voice, your voice. And it's like, I can't take that compliment because it's not my voice, you know? So I
So,
knew I needed to go on testosterone. But I had so many shows booked up. It was like, okay, I actually did things the other way round. So I had top surgery first and
okay.
then had testosterone, and they only let me do that because of my career.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so there are those sorts of challenges early on as well that come from transition whilst trying to pursue a really difficult career to pursue. So there's that, and then there's like industry barriers as well.
Yeah, because your identity is part of your image, isn't it? And if you're changing, it's very difficult to have that identity and that image that you want straight away because it takes time, right?
Yeah, it's really and there's, you get like photos back of yourself and stuff like that, and you'll have people, oh, that's a good photo, and we should put that on social media. And I'm like, I can see that that is pre top
Mm.
surgery, and I do not want to ever see that again. You're talking about putting it out to everyone else. Are you mad? So yeah, I guess you could almost, if you're not out at that point, or even if you are, you could almost get a reputation for being difficult or like, yeah, just harder to kind of
Yeah,
pursue music with. And it's, I don't know, there's just these barriers, and
really bad.
yeah, but luckily we're, I wouldn't say we're fully come out the other side, but we've already proven we can bash some barriers down. So why not bash the rest?
Exactly, definitely. And how's that impacted you and your kind of career? How do you think that's kind of impacted you?
Which bit?
Like just kind of the discrimination, the stigma, and the challenges that you've had to face.
Um, Well, I have this line that I say a lot, that it's kind of like running a marathon before the start line,
Mm. Yeah,
um, in some ways. And then to use another metaphor, I think it's kind of like walking in treacle, really. And you can see people around you it being easier for, like in music, and just in life, just in day-to-day living. And if you focus on what other people are doing rather than what you're doing, then you're gonna get to a pretty dark space. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. I love that quote. It's so true. Like,
yeah,
so comparison doesn't help anyone. Whether you think someone else is having it easier than you or doing better than you, or the other way. If you think you're better than someone, either way, it's not good.
Yeah, it
So
doesn't.
I tried to just focus on what I'm doing, and which is my pursuit. I think my pursuit of songwriting saved my life. Like having that pursuit
Yeah,
outside of myself, that is what got me out of my hometown and got me out of a really dark place and all that sort of stuff. And so it just the writing of songs itself, the songwriting rather than the songs, rather than the accolades, the achievements, whatever, the actual just writing and trying to get better and better every day as a writer and connect with people that way.
yeah.
That's the game changer for me.
How inspirational. Thank you for sharing that.
I
And
try, yeah.
you do a great job. And how do you think we do for role models and inspiration and empowerment for our own community right now in the music industry?
There's some amazing role models in music. I love K Tempest. Like anyone that knows me, I'm like a K Tempest super fan. Like, and their documentary that came out recently, like I highly recommend that to anyone.
Yeah.
They're just an incredible, the most incredible writer, in my opinion. And yeah, there's loads of other trans artists as well. There's like Laura Jane Grace from Against Me, if metal's your bag, you know, that kind of music. And Anhoney or Anthony for yeah, that incredible writer. But there's also some really cool trans people working in the industry now as well.
Mm.
Um, and trying to change things that way. So yeah, we're getting there. Slowly but surely we're getting there.
And do you think that kind of talent pipeline needs to change and evolve to support us better into these roles? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think like we've mentioned, there's all these barriers, right? And if we can change those and celebrate trans people. Let me give you an example. Like when I was in, I think it was 2022, I had a job working in recruitment, right? This is before I went into songwriting. And a trans woman came into the office and wanted to be put forward for a job, and I was directly told by a manager not to put them forward because they were trans. And I wasn't out at the time, right? But those sorts of things happen all the time.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so changing those barriers just so it's equal for everyone is only gonna make things better all round. Like trans people have so much to offer. We're talking about songwriting. With that, songwriting requires emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Emotional intelligence comes from overcoming hardship.
Mm.
Well, show me a trans person that hasn't been through hardship, and I'll
Oh,
show you a liar. Like,
got
come
it.
on, like we can offer so much in songwriting, in performing, but also in business and in industry as well, you know, like showing insight and connecting audiences. There's a huge audience out there for trans stories to be told in music. So why not why not use trans people to help tap into that?
Yeah.
Like,
And I think it has to be authentic representation as well, because I think sometimes we do struggle with that.
yeah, definitely. Like I've definitely encountered people who maybe aren't so authentic, like almost like positive about trans people, but not necessarily for the
These
right reasons, if that makes sense. I guess that's what you're referring to, right?
is correct. Yeah, I was referring.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. And what are your thoughts and feelings at the moment on equality, diversity, and inclusion in the music industry?
What are my thoughts of yeah, well, much like what we've been saying, really. Yeah, I think I see I see various events, and maybe this is sort of referring to the inauthentic kind of sides of the industry. I think that we are at a real like turning
Like,
point. There's like a shift happening with TV shows and films, you know, as well, like that obviously need music as well. Things like Heartstopper and like The L Word had a reboot, and that had all kinds of like queer artists on that soundtrack. So I think people are starting to cotton on a little bit to there being a market for queer music. But with that comes these inauthentic kind of users, people that are just trying to use like trans without that kind of actual admiration and support and wanting to help telegraph these stories for the right reasons. So I guess I have thoughts on that in terms of equality, diversity, and inclusion. When we're getting to a point where, okay, maybe we are trying to equalize things a bit and be more inclusive. But then if they do that and then they're not, and like say they're putting on an event, and they just put on people that are gonna, I don't know, help them get more followers, or they're gonna use trans music for their own financial gain, and it's not good, they're not gonna be supporting other trans people with that. I don't know. I'm not articulating my answer to this one very well, but I basically think I'm saying that we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. And it would be nice if we could go about things in the right way moving forward.
I totally agree. So if there was any two things that you could change moving forwards, what would those two things be?
Oh, that's a good one. Two things, only two.
Two, just two for now, because we'll be here all day at once.
Yeah, we could. We could probably do a list of about 10. Okay, two things to change moving forward. Um, well, I guess just better representation. I mean, even like festivals, you even see on festival lineups like that they pretty much are, I don't know what the statistic is, something like 80% cis straight white male like participants on these lineups, right? So maybe that would be a good starting point to change. Just including more women, more queer people, more gender diverse people, people of different races. Like, yeah, like that would be a huge game changer, I think. And then maybe trying to make stuff financially better, I think, like just so it's more sustainable for people. Like it's so hard these days when you're starting out to be able to dedicate yourself to music and to a music career. Um Obviously trans people face more difficulties with employment and stuff like that, and if trans people are having to pay for surgeries and hormones because they can't get them for whatever conservative government reason we're facing that week, then how can we take our own money and put it into studio time, for example, and stuff like that? So more kinds of I guess specific grants and financial support and stuff like that, like schemes and initiatives that could help trans music get out there more, I guess. I don't know, just off the top of my head, they're the first two. I will WhatsApp you about 8 more throughout the day.
Please do. That would be fantastic. And from your point of view and our community's point of view, do you think cultural and age differences have an impact on acceptance and inclusion?
Yeah, I do. I think age is quite a big one. Through I got involved with Pride in London this
Yeah,
year.
well done.
And huh?
Well done, you.
Uh,
Fantastic.
yeah, it was cool. We got to headline the first trans-led stage, so that was a pretty cool thing to do, like to play these trans songs to 2,000 other queer people was a particular life highlight, I think. But also through that experience, I was involved in kind of round tables and stuff like that, where I met loads of amazing trans artists that had sort of come before me and come before us all, and they were older and they were talking about this age discrimination, and I hadn't really thought of it before. And actually, in reference to one of my previous answers when I was talking about events, I know of a trans event that was on, and it only included like teenage artists, I think, and there was maybe you know the one that I'm talking about. You do. Yeah. There was quite a few tra older trans artists that were quite vocal about their exclusion online, and it just really got me thinking about that. And it's true. And again, if we're talking about emotional intelligence and songwriting and having stories to tell, then my God, like older people are going to have those stories. So why would we not Why would you discuss? It's just foolish. So I do think there are those barriers, but you know, we know when we're trans, we're sort of reborn. So our age actually is a lot younger. I'm like, I don't know, I'm 5 years old right now, you know, something like that.
I know exactly what you're saying because we actually have to start again. We have to physically, mentally, emotionally have to press that reset button, and everything is a new experience in a different view of life, in a different world, because those gender norms do exist and people treat you differently based on those. And I think that's
Definitely.
something we have to navigate, which is not easy.
Definitely. There's so many. I mean, it's almost too much to comprehend the amount of different things to adapt to, and ways that things change, like passing privilege, for example. I mean, whatever that is, like, but um stuff like that, that's a huge shift, and you never know. I actually wrote a song, as I told you, I'm doing Songwriter at the moment, so I'm writing a song every day in January, and one of the songs I wrote the other day was called, there's a co-write with another trans writer, and it was called the Hokey Cokey, and it was this idea of going in and out the closet all the time, having to come out over and over, and also having to um hide yourself sometimes for fear of safety, like perceived threat, you know, like for example, if you're reading a queer book on the tube, and then you sort of subconsciously, even you're hiding the cover to, because you don't know who's looking at you around, like um stuff like that. There's so much mad stuff to navigate. Can I just say, I know this is apple juice in here, but it looks like
Not
whiskey,
at
and
all.
it's 11:15 in the morning, so I just want to clarify that with you right now.
No, it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that. Thank you for sharing that as well, because I really think that's an important point you make. And it's also about understanding these things and sharing them with other people, because I can say things from my own point of view. And I think this is another thing. We can only share our own stories and our unique perspectives because we all have different ones. And I think
Yeah.
trans men and trans women, we have some shared issues, but we have different issues as well. And I think it's also about understanding those as well for the industry to understand.
100%, 100%, and non-binary people as well, you know, like yeah, we, of course we have stuff in common, but also, I don't know, if someone asked me what it was like to be non-binary, or a trans woman or a woman, I would say I have no idea. I couldn't tell you what it's like to be any of those three things. I can tell you what it's like to be a man and what it's like to be a trans man, and I can um make some guesses and suggestions from friends of mine and what they've told me it's like to be a trans woman or non-binary, and the experiences they've had. But you're probably better off speaking to those people directly, who could give you a better account than I could, or listen to their songs, you know.
And then you get some stories and some vision and inspiration from that. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about, have you ever suffered from mental health discrimination or stigma in the industry, being trans?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's a trans person alive that hasn't had their mental health suffer at some point. Um, Even those sorts of famous trans people that maybe have had come from a more privileged background and have had an easier um access and journey of transition, you know. Even those people, to feel gender dysphoria is just so traumatic in itself. Like, so there's that alone. But then if we're also talking about not being able to access treatment, and then we're also talking about being discriminated against and facing um yeah, kind of prejudice and abuse and all those kinds of things, then of course everybody that's trans will experience a huge impact to their mental health, myself included, for sure. Um, which has been documented on my album,
Oh,
you
great.
know. Well, the whole album is autobiographical about my transition. So to avoid talking about waiting for treatment or talking about religious trauma, because I was brought up in the church, or talking about yeah, mental health impact and addiction and all these kinds of things, to avoid talking about that would not be an authentic account of my transition, and or probably most other people's transitions as well. So vulnerability is everything in songwriting. So that has to be in there, you know. So yeah, mental health definitely, discrimination
Yeah.
arguably.
Yeah.
And what was the third one you said?
So for example, if you're going on stage or you're doing a performance, do you find that if people do know that you're a trans person, do you get stigma for that, or do people automatically judge you or think they know what you are, who you are before they've met you?
Um, I think I've been really lucky in a lot of ways. I go out with my band. I've got like a six. We're a six-piece band, so I've always got like my sort of crew of allies with me, which really helps me in terms of having the confidence to frontman that stuff and share that vulnerable stuff
Mhm.
with audiences all over. Like we played these. We went to play a festival in Eastern Europe. We went to play a festival in Bulgaria. I'd never been to Bulgaria before. I had no idea what it was going to be like. Um,
What was it?
but you know, we had our perceived notions of Eastern Europe and tolerances and that sort of stuff. And we played, and that it was the biggest celebration. Like there was no discrimination of any kind. It was all that's one of the beautiful things about music and about the music industry. It's like the weirder the better, you know, like let's all celebrate each other. And it really was that. So I mean, I've experienced trauma and discrimination in my life, as we just said, most, if not all, trans people will have done. So I definitely carry that sometimes and feel apprehension around putting myself out there so much. But with the support of my friends, my allies, and I guess exposure therapy. And I'm not delusional. I know that there will be some people, and I probably will experience that again at some point in my life. But um, for the most part, it doesn't happen. For the most part, people are good. That's another song I wrote in January. Like, yes, crazy shit goes on all the time, and there are some assholes in this world. Am I allowed to swear on this? I don't know.
Fine. Don't fine.
Too late, yeah. And if you watch the news every day, then you will train your brain into thinking that bad stuff happens more than it does, I think. But 90% of people are good, I think. And so yeah.
And I like to hear that actually. So thank you so much. And you've got so much going on. Do you want to share some of your wins and successes of what you've got coming up, what you're doing, and how people can find your music and listen to you or connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what we've got coming up. So the album Present in the Post, that's my debut album that I've been talking about. Um, that came out in October. So there'll be a lot of playing those songs this year. Or wherever will have me play them. We've already started booking up a bunch of festivals, lots of Pride festivals, obviously. Um, but I don't think I can announce any yet. So I'll have to tell you them later, and then you can pass them on for me. But yeah, Pride festivals, music festivals, we'll definitely put on some more shows in London and Brighton and wherever else. And yeah, now if I'm doing 31 days of songwriting in January, I'm gonna have a load of new material to be getting on with as well. Right? But I've got a bunch of other artists that are releasing songs that I've written on as well. So people can maybe look out for those and support those. And I have my own podcast. It's called Satch and Leo's Transmission. It's not nearly as professional as this.
Oh,
It's it's
no, this is the I don't
it's
call it.
not, it's really not, mate. It's me and Leo, who's another trans guy, just chatting shit, basically. So, yeah, there's that as well. We're gonna do another series of that. And yeah, just hope to have a really creative year and just connect with as many people as possible.
Amazing. And what's your social media handles?
Yeah, sorry, that was so bad. I didn't even say that. It's at the real Satch, on Instagram, and yeah, at the real Satch on. Yeah, I think Facebook, TikTok, yeah, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, get in touch. Get in touch.
Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing your story. And yeah, we'll speak again soon.
Nice one. Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.
Put this one on being, there we go.